For most people, winning the lottery is a dream that will never actually come true. However, we might just be the lucky ones, since for some people who have hit the jackpot, the prize turned their lives into not a dream, but a chaotic nightmare. Welcome to The Dive, where we go deep on the topics that interest us the most. And in this video, we'll be taking a look at 3 lottery winners in particular whose fortunes turned into misfortune. So join us and find out why winning the lottery might not be all it's cracked up to be. William Post III was born in 1939 in the city of Erie, Pennsylvania. Affectionately known as Bud, his life didn't get off to the best of starts, as his mother died when he was only 8 years old, and his father sent him away to live in an orphanage soon after. Nevertheless, William survived, and when he was old enough to find his own way in the world, he took on various short-term jobs. Bud drifted between work as a cook, a laborer, a truck driver for carnivals and circuses, and a spray painter. Up until the age of 50, he had never had the chance to own a house or a brand new car. He'd served 28 days in jail for passing fraudulent checks, and by 1988, he was living off disability. However, William's luck was about to change. One day, he decided to pawn his ring and gave his landlord, who also happened to be his on-and-off girlfriend, $40 in cash to buy 40 tickets for the Pennsylvania State Lottery. Among the tickets he received for this money was a winner worth $16.2 million, which adjusted for inflation would be worth over $42 million today. Having never had much money to his name ever, Bud went a little crazy with his newfound purchasing power. He had told reporters at the time that his bank account contained a measly $2.46. I don't know, maybe there's better things to be spending your money on than gambling at that point, but who am I to say? It seemed to work for him. Anyway, within 2 weeks of collecting his first payout of almost $500,000, he had spent $300,000 on gifts for his estranged siblings, including a lease on a Florida restaurant and a used car lot. He had also obtained a liquor license and bought a twin-engine plane for himself, despite not having a pilot's license. Just 3 months after getting his first payout, Bud was already $500,000 in debt. 1 year later, having collected another $500,000, he made the more sensible purchase of a 16-room mansion in Oil City for $395,000. But he wouldn't be able to enjoy his new surroundings for long. In 1989, William's brother, whom he was now no longer in contact with, hired a hitman to kill Bud, along with his 6th wife, so that he could claim the lottery winnings as inheritance. Lucky for Bud, the attempt failed and his evil, ungrateful brother was arrested. That same year, though, Anna Karpik, the aforementioned landlady/girlfriend of Post, came sniffing around claiming that Bud had agreed to split the winnings with her and hadn't. A 3-year legal battle ensued, culminating with the judge awarding Karpik a third of the winnings. When Post refused to pay, the judge then froze his annual lottery payments until the dispute was settled. Rapidly running out of cash and unable to pay off his mortgage, Bud was forced to sell his mansion for just $65,000, $330,000 less than what he'd paid for it. He also auctioned off the remaining 17 lottery payments he was due, telling the Guardian newspaper in London that, "Once I'm no longer a lottery winner, people will leave me alone. That's all I want." Sadly for him, though, he wouldn't be left alone, because after auctioning off his winnings and spending his last couple million paying off debts and buying several vehicles, as well as 2 homes and a $260,000 sailboat, there was still a warrant out for his arrest. It turned out that while still living at his mansion in Oil City, William had fired a shotgun at a man who had come to collect a car repair debt. For this, he was due to serve a 6 to 24-month prison sentence. When Bud's appeal to the Supreme Court failed and he refused to surrender to police, he was hunted down by authorities and arrested on his boat. By the time he had finished serving his criminal sentence for assault, Post had racked up over $1 million in debt and was reduced to living off food stamps and collecting $450 per month in disability checks. Surprisingly, he did manage to marry a 7th wife, and after succumbing to respiratory failure at the age of 66 in 2006, he is survived by his 10 children. Looking back, in an interview from 1993, 5 years after winning the lottery, William Bud Post had told reporters, Everybody dreams of winning money, but nobody realizes the nightmares that come out of the woodwork, or the problems. Boy, was he right about that. On March 6, 1999, at a bustling Waffle House in Grand Bay, Alabama, a hungry clientele chowed down on their food, just like any other day. The majority of patrons were hardworking individuals, and at one table in particular was Edward Seward, a truck driver who was a regular at the establishment. He dined alone, and his waitress was Tonda Lynn Dickerson. Now, Tonda, a woman in her late 20s, had experienced a difficult past. She was a divorced single mother who had left her abusive husband a few years prior. Her current existence was marked by making ends meet, which meant working a grueling 5 shifts per week. Little did she know that her life was about to change, but not necessarily for the better. As a regular customer, Seward was friendly with many of the waitstaff, so much so that he handed out lottery tickets to 5 employees, including Tonda, seemingly as a gesture of goodwill. Seward would often buy the tickets on his trips to Florida and handed them out to friends and family upon his return. On March 6th, though, he probably wished he'd held on to one ticket for himself. Later that day, after the Florida lottery draw had been completed, 3 of the Waffle House employees checked their gift tickets, only to find that none of them were winners. However, on March 7th, the remaining 2 employees checked theirs, and Tonda was stunned to discover that her ticket had netted her a cool $10 million. Not bad for a tip, huh? Tonda's co-workers rejoiced, not only for the single mother, but also for themselves. After all, they had formed a close-knit group and had previously agreed that if any one of them ever struck it rich, the winnings would be divided among the team. However, Tonda had a different interpretation of the agreement and refused to share her newfound fortune, adopting more of a finders keepers approach. As you can imagine, this decision left her former colleagues seething, and they decided to take legal action against Tonda, contending that there had always been a pact to share any lottery winnings. Fast forward a year later, and the court determined that indeed there was an agreement in place to split the winnings, constituting an oral contract. However, there was a significant obstacle. Alabama law stipulated that contracts associated with gambling, which is illegal in the state, are not legally enforceable. As a result, Tonda was allowed to keep the entire sum. When word of this betrayal reached Mr. Seward, he was upset for 2 reasons. Firstly, Tonda did not share the prize with her coworkers as she had agreed. And secondly, Seward did not receive the pickup truck he believed was owed to him if any of the employees won the lottery. So, he also filed a lawsuit. Unfortunately for Seward, he faced defeat at the summary judgment stage, meaning his case did not have sufficient merit to proceed to a full trial. Undeterred, he took his case all the way to the Supreme Court of Alabama, only to experience a crushing defeat yet again. Now public enemy number 1, even if not guilty in the eyes of the law, Tonda attracted intense media scrutiny and her name was thrust into households across America. This meant it also appeared on the radar of the International Revenue Service, also known as the dreaded IRS. It's worth noting that all lottery winnings are subject to taxation. Upon investigating Tonda, the IRS found that she had established an S corporation, together with her family, to attempt to mitigate her income tax liabilities. When this dodgy business venture named 9 Mil was brought to the attention of an IRS attorney, they promptly delivered Tonda a notice for her failure to pay federal gift taxes. Over the next 12 years, Tonda faced relentless pressure from the IRS for payment of these gift taxes, in addition to substantial income taxes. In 2012, a court ruling finally determined that she would have to pay a little over $1.1 million. Though it may not seem like it, this was still somewhat of a win for Tonda as she was able to retain the majority of her winnings, which she subsequently shared with her family. However, the stress she had to go through and the greedy stain on her reputation make you wonder if it was all worth it. I mean, she could probably never set foot inside another Waffle House ever again. In 2023, it was reported that Tonda Dickerson was working as a poker dealer at a casino in Biloxi, Mississippi. Oddly enough, that's the exact same city where William Bud Post had docked his sailboat and where he'd planned to start a charter fishing business before he was arrested. Small world, huh? Our final tale comes from across the pond, where Britain's most notorious lottery winner blew the lot and ended up working in a cookie factory. Michael Carroll, a former garbage collector, won £9.7 million, approximately $15 million in the US, in the UK National Lottery in November 2002. At the time, he was just 19 years old and was already a petty criminal. According to the BBC, he collected his winnings wearing a police-ordered electronic monitoring anklet, and the UK media soon dubbed him the Lotto Lout for his rowdy behavior. But he wasn't always a villain. To begin with, at least, Michael appeared to have good intentions with regard to his lottery win, expressing his wish to acquire a modest 3-bedroom home by a lakeside, where he could indulge in his passion for fishing. A big fan of football, that's soccer, not American football, he invested £1 million in his favorite football club, Rangers FC, and invested another £3.9 million into a bond that yielded a monthly income. Carroll was advised to only tap into this account if the funds from his standard account were exhausted, because doing so would incur large penalty fees. So far, very sensible responses to life-changing winnings. With the rest of his money, Carroll gifted his mother, aunt, and sister £1 million each. However, by September 2003, he reported that he had already begun relying on the returns from his investment bond to pay for his living expenses. The property Michael bought was a house called The Grange. It cost him £340,000, and he spent a further £400,000 extending it, while also installing a swimming pool and a jacuzzi. Here's where all those good intentions went straight out of the window, as the young millionaire, when left to his own devices, would begin to embrace a destructive, overly flamboyant lifestyle. Carroll spent his remaining fortune on luxury cars, parties, and other extravagant indulgences. His life soon spiraled out of control and attracted media attention, which made him a tabloid sensation in the UK. He gained infamy for his excessive drug use, tacky golden jewelry, and an unhealthy obsession with prostitutes. Needless to say, Michael's reckless behavior got him into even more trouble with the law, too. In 2005, he received an antisocial behavior order after damaging cars and store windows with a slingshot while drunk. A year later, he was imprisoned for 9 months due to his involvement in a public brawl. During the sentencing, the court took note of Carroll's extensive record of 42 previous offenses dating back to 1997. In one particularly distressing episode, Carroll returned home to his mansion to find 5 of his Rottweilers had their throats cut, and intruders carrying shotguns were threatening his family. He paid them a ransom fee of £130,000, and soon after ended up selling the Grange at a huge loss for £142,000. According to experts, the property would have been worth at least $700,000 had Carroll looked after it. But once his money started to dry up, the house fell into complete disarray. By 2010, electricity and gas supplies had been cut off due to unpaid bills. And according to a friend of Carroll's, he was living like a wild animal. There was evidence of drink and drugs in every room. He used to hold wild drugs and sex parties, and the house got ruined. In 2012, the reports were widespread that Carroll's once abundant wealth had all but run out. The Lotto Lout openly acknowledged that he was relying on unemployment benefits, and even grappling with suicidal thoughts. Time magazine also noted that he had become estranged from the mother of his young daughter. Thankfully, this story doesn't have a dark ending though, as Michael would eventually relocate to Elgin, Scotland, in order to start a new life. He got himself a job at a cookie factory and recalled later in an interview that he had camped out in the woods near Elgin because he had nowhere else to go. "Sitting there in the woods was when I first thought I can sort myself out properly," Carroll said. And so far, he seems to be doing well. Despite earning a weekly salary of around $300, he appears to relish a return to normal life. "I treasure those wages more than any £9 million fortune," he told the Daily Record. "I've only got one chance left. I'd have been dead in 6 months if I'd carried on that lifestyle of drinking and drug taking." Carroll's autobiography, entitled Careful What You Wish For, goes into further detail about just how close he came to self-destruction and the role that easy money played in his downfall. So there you have it. Winning the lottery can bring with it a whole host of potential problems. It's worth remembering these stories next time you think about buying a ticket. And these are just 3 examples that I picked from a long list of woeful winners. If you're interested in hearing more, remember to leave a like on this video, and leave a comment down below to tell us what you would do with your lottery winnings if you were lucky enough, or unlucky enough, to have won it. That's all for now though. Thanks for watching, and until next time, try not to ruin your life with unprecedented winnings.